Hello and welcome to Irresistible You, Ignite Your Passion and Purpose. I'm your host, Karen Seltz, also known as the Uncensored Self-Love Coach. Tonight, we are going to talk about how to dissolve the power of fear. Now, I don't know if you can relate, but for me, I had a lifetime of allowing fear to stop me dead in my tracks. Like I would be like, oh, I'm going to do this thing. And then I'd go and I'd get close and I would chicken out. So if you can relate to anything like that, like allowing fear to stop you anywhere, hold on. This is the show for you. So if you are new to me, there are really only three things that you need to know. The first one is that if you have a deeper calling and haven't yet totally stepped into it, and you want some more information, like, okay, how do I do this? How do I do that? Know that I am on that path. I have done a ton of transformational work, and I will be alongside that path with you. So you're in the right place. The second thing that you need to know is that I consider my greatest superpower to be that of a divine mirror. Now, what I mean by that is I have the ability to look at people and see them not as they see themselves, not as society sees them, but as the divine sees them. And I'm able to reflect that back to them until they get it for themselves. So they could see their greatest gifts and why they're here, and they get to shine their light. And I reflect it back to them until they see it for themselves. And they're like, oh my gosh, I got it. Yes. And the third thing that you need to know is that I am uncensored in my approach. And what I mean by that is I am willing to say whatever I'm called to say, which may not sound nice to a human ear sometimes, go wherever I'm called to go and do whatever I'm called to do to get you to a breakthrough. So hold on to your hats. So one of my favorite stories about fear is after my mom died, she had left me some money and I was in my temporary job, we will call it, for over 20 years. Now, talk about being stuck by fear. Like I was a freaking prisoner that in a prison that I had created based on fear. Like I'll never find another job that gives me this much freedom with this much money. Bull, right? Bull crap. We all know that. Now I know that. Who would hire me? All I have is experience in selling chemicals of all things. Weird thing. All the stories, right? Like I like being a mom, so I only want to work 2 days a week and I can't make that much money. So I had a bunch of stories, a lot of limiting beliefs. So after my mom passed away, I had a cushion. I had some extra money. And I decided to go to this event that a business coach was having. And she was talking to me when she had made her call to action. Like, are you a heart-based, mission-centered entrepreneur? Do you want to make a difference in the world? And I'm like, yes, yes, yes. And then it came down to the price. And I was like, like I couldn't even wrap my head around spending that much money. I'd never invested that much in myself. And I thought, who am I? And that was, of course, not my voice, but my mom's voice. Like, who do you think you are to spend that much money on yourself? That's so selfish. And I had all these limiting beliefs and all these fears popping up. And there was luckily a calm, centered voice that said, if not now, when? This is your time. This is your community. So I stepped in with this business coach, and that led me to meeting a community of beautiful people and to many other coaches along my path. But it got me to where I am here today because I acknowledged, oh my gosh, I'm afraid. And I stepped into it. I'm like, okay, I get to be afraid and I get to exercise courage and act. So as a result, I am here today and I'm coaching hundreds of people. And I never would have had that opportunity if I hadn't said yes, if I hadn't walked through that fear. So what I want to do tonight is to walk you through several processes to help you navigate, because we're always going to be confronted with fear, right? It's innate. It's our human condition. And I believe that every single thing we experience, every emotion, is based out of either love or fear. And when we can boil it down to its simplest components, it's a little easier to navigate, because we think like, oh, I'm angry. Well, that's fear. I'm frustrated. That's fear. I'm happy. That's love, right? So it's easier when we simplify it down to those two emotions. So I want to share with you my screen, and we're going to rock and roll. So I studied this book. It's called The Way of Mastery, and it's I don't know what you call it, a metaphysical text. So it's my spiritual study, my spiritual practice that really speaks to me as truth. And I came across this passage around dissolving the power that fear has over you. And I'm like, oh, this is beautiful, because who hasn't dealt with this? So I'm going to dive right in. And one of the things, I've also been studying Joe Dispenza and all kinds of things about quantum physics, but thought is the substance of all things. So if you think about any invention, for example, somebody thought of it before it came to be in the material world. So before you created your house, your car, your partner, it was a thought that you had first. It started as thought. Now, thought is an impulse of energy. It travels faster than the speed of light. So you can think about your friend Shelly, and she will pick it up immediately. She'll say, oh, and she may or may not be in the practice of noticing and paying attention. It might just be a brief passing thought, but you can send people whatever kind of energy you want. You can send love, you can send fear, you can send whatever you choose. So one of the beautiful things about thought is, when people post something on Facebook, like their dog died, you can go into a state and just say, oh my gosh, I want to surround that person with love and hugs and beautiful energy. And they will feel it. It knows no bounds. Energy is transmitted like that. And that's how things like energy healing take place. So when you think, oh, I should really call my mom, she's getting that. And she might call you at that moment. So it just works that way. It's like a radio antenna signal. You're like, doot, 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 doot. So you put it out there and people will pick it up. Now, whether they're in tune or not is a whole nother story. So just don't be surprised if people call you when you're thinking about them. All right. So the next part is a little harder to digest, which is you decide which thoughts will influence your life. Now, can be a tough one if you're going through some crappy stuff. I don't want you to beat yourself up with this. It's one of those things, just know that the science is this. We think 60 to 70,000 thoughts per day. And the research shows that 95% of them are exactly the same thoughts we thought yesterday. So in order for us to influence our thoughts, we get to become aware of what we will no longer tolerate. And by that, I mean, like, okay, what do you want to stop believing? And you get to look for it. You get to tell your mind, okay, notice when I'm being a victim. Notice when I'm beating myself up. Notice when I say mean things to myself, like, oh my gosh, I look ugly today. I look fat. Oh, that was a stupid thing to say. So you want to tell your subconscious mind, okay, notice those things, look for them. And when it lets you know, instead of beating yourself up for thinking them, you get to say, woohoo, I caught it, because yesterday you didn't catch it. So it starts with noticing, which is super uncomfortable, because once you start telling it to notice, your subconscious mind is going to alert you to all the crap that's been going on behind the scenes. It's still been there, but now you're going to become aware of it. So once you become aware of it, then you can influence. So when you catch those, you get to have at the ready, be prepared. What do you want to think instead? What would you rather believe? What would you rather think? So have that prepared, like be ready, know where you're going. So I talked about thoughts can be either loving or fear-based. And I want you to do this with me just for fun. last week we did some muscle check-in. And if you weren't here, I'm just going to go over it one more time for you. So the easiest way for me to check muscles is to use these two fingers. And you're just going to press them together kind of lightly and go like that and try to hold it. Now, when you say something that's true or positive or loving, it will hold. Like, my name is Karen. Yes, my name is Jill. Nope. So it doesn't hold. So the muscle fibers, it's like a lie detector. So the muscle fibers lock when something's true for you. I like broccoli. Yes, I do. I like peas. No, I don't. All right. So I love my dog. Yes. I hate peas. All right. So I said something negative, even though it's true for me that I hate peas. The negativity will weaken my energy system. And this is actually measurable. There are devices that can measure your energetic field. When you think a positive thought, it emanates from your heart really, really far. It's something like 12 meters. It's very far. And when you think a negative thought, your energy field contracts and people around you can feel it. Not only the people around you, but if you're thinking negative thoughts about somebody a continent away, they'll feel that too. So it's really interesting. I once trained, I'm certified in something called Brain Gym. And I went to this seminar and the guy did this demonstration and he had two people come up on stage and he whispered something in the ear of one of the people. And then he was doing muscle checking, which if you're doing on somebody else, some muscle checking on someone else, it looks different. So what he did is he checked the muscles of both of them and both of them were like whoop, weak, both of them. And then he said, what I did was I asked that person to think a negative thought about the other one. So it weakened both of their energetic fields. So I'm going to invite you to think a negative thought. It could be one of your limiting beliefs, like I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I don't matter, whatever it is, I'll never get a raise. And then check it, do the muscle check. Okay, like I'm not good enough. All right, it goes right through. And then the next thing is like notice it in your body. Like, where do you feel that? Do you feel it in your stomach, your throat, your heart, your neck? Like it could be anywhere, but notice your body. What does it feel like? The other way to muscle check is, I'm going to turn sideways, is show me a full body yes. Now, generally people will go forward. Show me a full body no. Whoa. Okay, so that's another way to check, which is kind of fun. You can use your whole body. I say I do that with food. If you hold like sugar, for example, I go flying backward, or if I hold water, I go flying forward. So anyways, then he did this energy, the guy at the seminar, he did this energy procedure where he had the person who was being thought about negatively, he had them visualize an energetic bubble around them of positivity, like a filter. Nothing negative could get in. He's like, tell me when you have that visual. And he's like, okay, I have it. So then he told the other person, okay, think a negative thought about this person. So the person being thought about, who had the energetic bubble around him, his muscles stayed strong when the other person's muscle went weak because he was thinking the negative thought. So I want you to imagine that, like just imagine when you think a negative thought, your energy field goes zzz, and what you can influence from that point is so small. So you're making your world smaller, more fearful and contracted just by thinking a negative thought. So if you could replace it with a loving thought, and sometimes if I'm in a really negative place, if I'm beating myself up, sometimes all I can think about is like, there's somebody that has made a difference in my life. And if I can think about that person, then I start to open up to love. Or maybe it's a pet that loves you unconditionally or loved you unconditionally as a child. But you get to start somewhere with adding in some loving thoughts and then practice adding the loving thoughts. All right. So we kind of practiced what happens when you think a loving thought or a positive thought, what happens when you think a fearful one. And then if you could imagine what happens to your energy field, which we discussed. Now, here's another concept. There is nothing outside of you. So everything that you see, everything that you experience is a reflection of you, and you are the sole creator. You are responsible for all of it. And it's not from that, again, that place of beating yourself up. You get to approach it with curiosity, like, I wonder why I created this. Interesting, which is a practice. It's not like you start there. So one of the things I wanted to share is, like, if you want to attract people who will love and support you, guess what? You get to love and support yourself first, which is why this self-love work is so important. It's so important in our personal evolution. So I don't think it's enough to just tell people, oh yeah, do this, without giving them the how to. I can tell you, like, yeah, just think loving thoughts, which it says here. So how do you do that? It's kind of like what we just talked about. Notice when your thoughts aren't loving, or notice when your body feels contracted. Anytime you are in judgment of yourself or someone else, you get to practice saying, oh, interesting. I like to call it out, like, oh, I see that I'm judging this person. And sometimes, depending if I have a relationship with them, I call myself forward. I'm like, you know what? I was judging you there, and you deserve better than that. And I see how that is reflecting a part of me that I really don't want. I don't want this in me, so I'm projecting it onto you. So depending on how far along you are, you can play with it that way. And then, like I mentioned, you can think loving thoughts about somebody who is easy to love, and then you can bring it out to other people. And when it comes to you, or me in this case, what's easy for me when I'm beating myself up, it's easy for me to love the young parts of myself. My little 3-year-old who just wants love. She wants acceptance. My rebellious teenager, again, she wanted to be heard. She wanted to be loved. She wanted to be seen. She wanted to have an opinion, or like a vote in her life. So it's easier for me to love those younger parts of myself. And those are usually the ones that are acting out, wanting attention anyway. So when they get love, they stop acting out, they stop misbehaving. So that's a place where you can start. Another thing is mastering forgiveness. Now, in my spiritual practice, I don't believe that I could be a victim of anybody or anything. So the only person I really need to forgive for anything is me. I forgive myself for thinking I was a victim. I forgive myself for judging other people as being wrong. I forgive myself for thinking I was right repeatedly. That's one of my cons. Like, I'm always there. Oh, dang it, I'm right again. Ugh. So I'm constantly catching myself being right. Trust me, it's a fun process. But now at least I can laugh about it. I'm like, oh, there I go, being right again. Like, yep, smartest person in the room, Karen. Yep, you got it. All right. So dare to follow your heart. That takes practice. So by that, it's like, I'm going to stop sharing for a second. So following your heart, this is part of it is authenticity. So a lot of times we say yes to things or to people when we don't want to, when it's not a yes for us. We're like, could you bake cookies for the bake sale? Not that people do that anymore. It's a bad example. And I'm like, oh yeah, sure. And inside I'm like, girl, dang it, it's one more thing to do. It's the last thing I want to do. Or can you give me a ride to the airport? Somebody I don't know that well. Before, I probably would have said yes. Before I did a lot of work, and I would have been resentful. I would have been mad. I would have been mad at myself for saying yes. I would have been mad at them for even asking me. How dare they not know that I don't want to take them? So it's really noticing and being true to your heart. And then the other parts of that are being courageous. Like, what do you really want in your heart of hearts? What do you want? And taking one courageous step after the other. That's following your heart. And it's trusting, just trusting that the universe got your back, which is in here somewhere. Another one is celebrating life. So when I'm fearful or contracted, one of the things that I do is I look for, okay, what can I celebrate? There's got to be some win in here. I got out of bed, I took a shower, I exercised, I meditated, whatever it is, there are wins. And, I don't like to compare myself to other people. I believe that's a device of the ego. But if you do, you can see where you're more fortunate than a lot of people, a lot of people. So in that way, I think comparison can be okay as long as you're not using it to make yourself better than or worse than someone else. But to count your blessings, to be grateful for what you have and to celebrate life, then I think it's an okay place to go. Do what brings you joy. My favorite thing that shifts my energy immediately is skipping like a little child. And I don't know what it does, but physiologically, it does something to my brain. And I believe I have now a sample size of about 10. And everybody starts giggling after a few minutes or seconds, really. It doesn't take long because I don't know. I don't know what it does, but it's funny. So do what brings you joy. And when in doubt, focus out. So if you are what I like to call sitting in a shitty diaper, which means feeling sorry for yourself, stewing in the same old rotten beliefs that have gotten you stuck, then focus out. Just drop in, like, who can I serve today? Who gets to hear from me today? And 9 times out of 10, maybe 99 out of 100, that person really, really appreciates a call from you. And by serving them, by getting out of your shitty diaper and serving someone else, you get out of that fear place and you get into love and service. And you both rise and it just feels great. So I recommend that, of course. And know that the universe is a friendly place and it has your back. So a lot of people grow up with the paradigm that people are out to get them, or they're just waiting for the other shoe to drop so they can't celebrate things because they're afraid that they're going to end. Well, that's something that we create by continuing those beliefs. So what if we just know this? The universe has your back. The universe wants you to succeed. It is your birthright to be happy. It is your birthright to be successful. It is your birthright to be loved. You are love. You were born love. That never changes. So you are loving, you are loved, you are lovable forever. That never changes. So when you know that and it's in your body and it's in your core, what choices do you make? Like, if you know you can't fail, that the universe has your back, what do you do with your time? Is it different than what you're doing now? So just look at it, like, just notice, like, interesting. All right, and of course, this is my favorite, the last one. Be outrageous. Be willing to get out of your comfort zone and to not be liked. What I always say is, like, what you have is right here inside your comfort zone, and everything you want is outside of it. Everything you want is outside of it. So be willing to take like one scary step every day. Do something that scares you. You speak your truth. Use your voice. Say no to somebody. Ask for support. Do something that scares you. I love pre-COVID, there's a TED Talk called 100 Days of Rejection Challenge. And this gentleman, Jia Zhang, tried to get rejected for 100 days in a row. Now, I love this. He actually developed an app called Dare Me. And we could probably do it again now that COVID's kind of, petering out. But my favorite dare in all of them was to ask a stranger to race. Now, yeah, I'm 53. And I would be out somewhere. I'm like, I'm feeling a little, meh. I'm going to go ask someone to race. And so I'll go to like a shopping plaza, or like I've done it on a date before, a double date. I'm going to go ask that guy to race. And it's hilarious. People's faces when you ask them to race, they're like, what the? Like, what? That's insane. It's outrageous. Nobody does that, especially adults. Like, but you should see the joy it brings, especially if they say yes. It's so much fun. So be outrageous, have some fun. Just remember that seriousness is of the ego. So, all right. So actually dissolving the power of fear. So the first step to that is noticing when you're experiencing fear or contraction. So you're going to feel it and you're going to own it from a responsible place. So saying something like, I choose to have the experience of being a contracted and fearful human being, because you're never a victim of anything. So know that you're choosing it. Awesome. And remember that the world shows up to reflect that fear back to you out of loving service to you. It's not a slap in the face. It's here you go. You're ready to heal this. I'm going to show it to you. You got this. And remember that you were born to create and you were born with the power to choose. So I love this concept of choose again. So if you don't like what you have, simply make a new choice. It is literally that simple. So if you're feeling crappy or fearful or like a victim, what would it be like if you chose something else? Amazing. Things open up. It's incredible. Try it. And here's my magic question. So I invite you to ask this to yourself. Where or what in my life am I resisting? So resistance, I wanted to say the quote that I put at the end. Where you choose to resist, moving through fear, you are building a self-imposed, self-created prison. And you are but one choice away from creating whatever you want with walls made of love. So just like, think about that for a second. Walls made of love. It's like that bubble around you, that protection bubble that we talked about earlier. All right, now we'll let me go back a screen. Well, I guess I wasn't meant to share that. We'll just skip it. We're going to be outrageous and skip it. So I hope that you got a lot out of that. And just know that, we're always going to have fear. When people say, I want to be fearless, I'm like, well, good luck. I don't know that it's humanly possible. Maybe everything's possible. But I would rather be courageous. I would rather have the ability to act in the face of fear than to just not feel it. Because for me, that goes back to spiritual bypassing. It's like, we're all going to feel fear. So if you can relate to any of this, I'm so happy that you are here. And I'm going to switch gears really quickly because I have something that I want to share with you. And that is that I have opened up a couple spots on my calendar for next week for free possibilities calls. And the reason I'm doing that is because oftentimes the women that come to me have held themselves back. They've played small. They're like, oh, I have this calling. It keeps tapping me on the shoulder, but I'm too afraid to answer it. And they keep being run by their limiting beliefs. And the taps get louder and louder and stronger and stronger. And it becomes really super uncomfortable. And I know that uncomfortable feeling. I know that pain. And I know the suffering that's involved. And I am here to shorten that period for you and to support you along your journey of finding out like why you're here. What are you here to create? What are you here to experience? And learning how to dance with fear, learning how to dance with it and create what you want. So if that's you, if you've been holding yourself back, if you want more, if you know you have a higher calling and you've been afraid to step into it, then I'm talking to you and invite you to book one of those 5 possibilities calls. All you have to do is go to connectwithkaren.us and it will take you directly to my personal calendar. And we'll hop on a call within the next couple of days and we'll go through what is it that you're here to create and what stopped you up until now? And we'll create a plan. So if I'm talking to you, if your spirit is stirring, then just go to connectwithkaren.us and I will be so excited to talk with you. Thank you so much for watching Irresistible You, Ignite Your Passion and Purpose. I will see you back here next week. Bye.